The Madison Museum of Contemporary Art is extremely honored to be able to present Floyd Newsome's first large-scale retrospective, guest curated by Mark Cervenka and Lauren Cross. The exhibition reflects on the Memphis-born artist's entire practice, including his paintings, printmaking, and public art commissions. With a career spanning nearly 50 years, Floyd invites viewers to look closely at his works in order to provoke them into further consideration of the personalized signs and imagery that he utilizes. Each work captures deeply personalized histories of the artist and his family, and it also uses symbols that are veiled by richly layered colors and textures that create tactile surfaces. If you've been upstairs and seen them, you know what I'm talking about. And he encourages each viewer to partake in an evolution of sight, encompassing a greater understanding of how his work and practice have developed over the last 50 years, as well as an important invitation to individuals to better understand ourselves, our past and present, and our ability to also evolve and transcend, all made possible through the power of art and its ability to facilitate shared understanding and dialogue. Floyd graduated from Memphis College of Art in Tennessee with a BFA and Temple University in Philadelphia with an MFA. And his public art projects in Texas include the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. The maquette is upstairs and stunning. Yes, very stunning. Also the Houston Metro Light Rail, Houston's Main Street Square, the University of Houston Downtown, Acres Home Multi-Service Center, and Hazel Harvey Peace Building in Fort Worth. His paintings and prints are in private collections, public museums, and universities, and other institutions, including the University of Maryland, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Xavier University, Philadelphia Museum of Art, and many others. He has been honored as an artist in residence at the Studio Museum Harlem and an Artadia Artist Grant recipient. In addition to serving as a professor of art at the University of Houston Downtown and a professional artist, Newsome has been a trailblazer in the field, breaking barriers in academia, the arts institutions, and communities. As a co-founder of Project Row Houses, Newsome worked with James Bettison, Burt Long, Jesse Lott, Rick Lowe, Bart Samples, and George Smith to build an integral part of the Houston arts community in the Third Ward. Utilizing dilapidated row houses that were once modest homes for rising affluent Black families, the co-founders established programs that not only support Black art and culture, but also build a community anew. So it is truly my honor and privilege to invite him to Amoka, Madison, and to the stage. Please join me in welcoming Floyd Newsome.
I want to thank the citizens of Madison. You are great people. I have enjoyed my stay here, and I'll be back. But I also want to thank my lovely wife, my son, my daughter, my cousins, my aunt, my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law, all the family and friends around the country that spent some money to get here and hear me and see my work. It is such a delight to be here with you tonight to talk about how I evolved, the evolution of sight. You know, growing up, any of us go through changes. That's maturity. And you start to weed out things so that you can become the person that you are. So as an artist, many, many years ago, 1972 and before, I was a realist. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm an activist, or was an activist in Memphis. I actually went to jail a couple of times for civil disobedience. It's a difference with Martin Luther King, okay? All right? And my work kind of reflected that. It reflected that. And then I got a little older, didn't change my behavior, my attitude, but I did change the way I see things in my work. The evolution of sight evolved from or transformed from realism to abstraction. And there's a phase that is very apparent in that evolution. When you enter into my show, the exhibition, first thing you're going to see is Reverend, this very realistic watercolor. Now, I'm not bragging, but I did win all the watercolor prizes in undergraduate school. Now, I'm not bragging. And I took photography. And maybe 10 years after I got out of school, I started seeing things different. I started wanting to explore color more. I wanted to free myself from trying to solve the world's problems in my art, because you know I'm one of the founders of Project Row House, so that's a different kind of thing. But in my art, I wanted to become like childlike. I wanted to become free to express the marks, the colors, the forms, the visual activity of movement. I wanted you to sense joy. I wanted you to sense playfulness. I wanted you to sense that I was free. And when I met these women in Ghana, now not physically, but there was this book called The African Canvas in Siuru. These women who made these marks on the village walls and in their dwelling places, that liberated me. Now, I've always been a lover of the woman. My mama, I love her to death. She's passed 20-something years ago. I've been married to this lovely woman here for 50 years. I got beautiful Arizona there. And so when I project the woman, I project her as a pearl. There are no glass ceilings for women or for anyone unless you accept it. So I want my women, and I have had my women, to soar. They soar. There aren't any limits. So in my work, you can see dance. You can see them flying. And you can sense and feel the joy that I've captured in them. And I was kind of selective in who I would use, or women that I would use as subject matter. Some of my students. I remember in Philadelphia, Larry, one of my best friends here, went to graduate school with me, great artist. And I was going down Broad Street in my yellow Volkswagen, and there was this woman walking real fast. I pulled my Volkswagen up and said, "Ma'am, I'm from Tyler School of Art, can I draw you?" She says, "How much?" So she had the form that I wanted. I don't remember how much I paid her by the hour, but Janice accepted it and she said, okay. And so when I find a woman that I can sense would be beautiful to draw and to paint and to represent the things that I wanted to share with you, I would either hire them or with my students, I just ask, "Can I photograph you?" "Yeah." And then they appear in my work. But, so with permission, so. But back in graduate school, those women were very, very realistic. Very, very realistic. A friend of mine, a great friend of mine, Charlene Jones, she's here. She owns this painting called The Hooded Departure, very realistic. But when you see Arizona's painting, there's a little bitty woman, a little on the right-hand side, about this big. She's got this, I think she has a scarf on, her hood on. She has a pearl, and it's brown, it's sepia, okay? That's very realistic. But through the course of my evolution, I started to make my women whimsical and just dissect and break down the regular form to bring forth my own creative attitude, my own creative sense of seeing. And so in doing that, the form sometimes looked very childlike. And I always say, folks who want to do abstraction and they can't draw realistic, I mean, it's okay, but not for me. I need to know how to draw first before I go into abstraction. So I push my students to learn how to draw right. Then you can go into abstraction. So my works, so you see that. When you see that watercolor, you see those modeling and those various colors blending and subtly changing. It gets like blue, so really fools the eye. That's work and that's study. But it's also work and study to be free, to do these whimsical forms. So I want to share with you two images, and one is called "I View the Cross, Billy." I think that's the first image. There it is. This was a very hard composition to create and finalize. In my earlier days, I would do a drawing, completely draw it, and have a color study, and then make the painting. Now I don't do that. I have so many years of knowledge of and a catalog of things that I use that I don't do that anymore. I start off with it on the edge, in the middle, somewhere, and it grows from there. That's the truth. There's a lot of times I'm just sitting and looking and saying, what am I going to do now? Oh, okay. Or I'll put something up, so I use these transparencies. I'll put it there and I said, no, let's move it over here. That's all about design, visual weights, understanding composition, understanding asymmetrical balance. You see, so it's free, but it's a problem-solving event. But it's one of joy. It's not all the way pre-planned. There's excitement. There's discovery, and that's what I enjoy. So this work, I had a problem trying to get it all together. So the thing that is the key for this composition coming together is this line that goes all the way around and those houses that are in there. That was the part that I had to place in there so that all these visual weights, large and small, could become one. So it's about a composition. But I View the Cross, Billy, has an interesting story. I'm a deacon at my church. And we had a ministry called Foot Washing. And we had a relationship with another church, and that's St. John Methodist Church. They would furnish the building, and they would have a breakfast, a service, and when they would exit Will Avenue Baptist Church, my church, a team of us would wash feet for those who could not wash their feet. And Billy was one of our clients. Billy doesn't like he's homeless. Billy was always dapper. And Billy always had a dog, okay? And he could sing and he could play the piano. And I asked Billy, I said, Billy, can I photograph you and use you in one of my works? He said, sure. Now, Billy passed away a few years ago. And he never saw this work, but it honors Billy, a great man who was homeless. But he looked like a prince, you know. And so the dog is one of my icons. In Egyptian mythology, the dog protects the woman. In Western society, the dog is loyal. So I use both concepts. There's a large work called Our Journey Never Ends, all the way back in the back, on the right-hand side gallery, on that wall. There's a dog in front of a woman. Stick man, so for those of you who could draw a stick, man, you and I are kinfolks. Okay? But when I first did that composition, it was a man. But I read this myth about the dog protecting the woman, so I put a skirt on her. Yeah. So there's some playful things in my evolution, in my forming of a composition. By reading certain things, they come into play in my work. So the house, family, community, Project Row House, founded on, I think, 7 or 8 shotgun houses. Drug-infested neighborhood, but when artists come in, they can clean it up. That's what we did. And it was not just a black thing, African-American thing. We had folks from River Oaks. I'm not sure if you ever heard of River Oaks, but whatever your richest neighborhood is here, that's River Oaks. Okay? Every color, men, women, all participated in the creation of Project Row House. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, in the New York Times, there were 25 significant institutions. Project Row House ranked number 14. Art can save your community. That's why we have to support MOCA. When you support this institution, you are saving not only yourselves, but you're saving America, and you're also saving the world. There's also another article. It said that when people go into museums, it's one of the most therapeutic events in their life. They can feel free. They can look at daisies, or they can look at abstractions. They just divorce themselves from the real world. So I'm glad that you are supporters of MOCA. So in this work, there are a whole lot of things, and that's what I hope and suggest that you examine my work. If you go by it too quick, you're going to miss something. Okay? There's some things in here that you won't see if you just look at it and keep going. I'll give you a couple examples. There's a little lady right here, and I just noticed the other day that I did have legs on it. You see this white contrast dress, but then she does have two legs and feet. Okay. You probably may miss the zebra, or the penguin up there, or the panda bear. Why? Why those 3 animals? What do they have in common? I'm asking you a question. What do they have in common? Black and white. That's symbolic to all of us, black, white, green, brown, red, yellow, polka dot. We should get together. So that's symbol for me. That's important. And right now we are doing that. The ladder. My dad was one of the first African-American firefighters in the South in 1955. There were 12 in Memphis. They were segregated to station number 8. And the joke was, they always beat everybody to the fire. Why? They didn't have any brakes. But the ladder is hope. You all know when you hear that siren, somebody's in trouble. But here comes help, ascension, elevation. It's all those positive connotations. I watched 7 bus loads of kids 2 days ago, and a fire truck came up, and they just got all excited. And you know what the firemen did? Like my dad, whoop, 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 and the kids just got excited. They got excited. And so the ladder honors my dad. But somebody might say Jacob's ladder. It's a pathway across a bridge or whatever. It's hope. It's hope. Then there's fish. I think, well, I don't think I see a fish yet, but I do see that chicken up there. Now, I like chicken. I will admit that. And I like it all kinds of ways. Fried, baked, broiled, barbecued, sliced and diced. But the chicken in the Benin era of Nigeria, the myth is that God brought the chicken to flatten the earth, pecking all the time. And my grandma, Medea, had chickens. And I'd see her wring those necks and the chicken jumping all around. So one of the guys said, "Are you going to do any flip-flops up there?" I just did it. Okay? If I do any more, I'm going to roll over and die. But that's why you see the chicken. Okay? And you see a little woman up here, she's soaring, but then you got this big woman, you know, and she's man, she's levitating. There's a church. There's a cross up there, and there's two churches, I think. You'll find them when you go in there, okay? But then there's something that reflects my past. Born in 1950. And there's a little statement here that says 50 years ending the Jim Crow. That's something else. But you got to find that. That's one element of this painting, you see. So you got to look at my work to discover certain things. Could I see yellow spirits? And this is totally different. There are no figures in this work. It's gouache, G-O-U-A-C-H-E, gouache. It's a watercolor with in-earth painting that makes it very thick. You could put black down and put a yellow over it, it'll stay yellow. You could put blue down and put yellow over it, yellow will stay yellow. That's gouache. Watercolor won't do that. Watercolor fuses together. Why did I do this painting? Yellow spirits. I have a love affair with a lot of artists. And Buford Delaney, the late Buford Delaney, African-American artist, he was a master of the hue yellow. I just honor and just get mesmerized when I see one of his paintings in yellow. So I dedicated this painting to him, and I'm trying to perfect, doing something magical and serene and calming in yellow. Now, yellow is not just yellow. There's all kinds of yellow. When mixed with these yellows are other colors. And there's this playful attitude of all these organic forms and lines and circles. And this could, now I call it a wagon, but that could be a double bus. The two circles, the wheels, You'll find that quite a few of the areas where that's sort of like my wagon or bus. But I also discovered when I started to see people in there. And it's not intentional. It's like two eyes, maybe that's the mouth. Two green eyes, and that's the mouth. But that's not on purpose. So the fun is what you discover fun for me is when I discover, that looks interesting, Other fun is that when you see it and you see something different, and I hear your story, when I'm in the next show, I bring your point of view up like it was mine. That's the fun. You don't know. Don't tell me no stories that you see in there, because I'm not going to give you credit. But this is all about just color and lines and marks. And that's what those women in Ghana taught me. That I could make these lines and marks and forms and just have a great, sincere loving affair with painting. That's what I'm about. You know, occasionally you're going to see some things in there that deal with who I am and what my history is. They're not attacking you. They're not. It's the world, and this is the world. Let's have some fun. Let's have some hope. You see, let's have some joy. And so, the difference between the two is that one reveals nothing that's realistic except for what your mind interprets. They call it visual perception.
I'm always fascinated with not only seeing the art itself, but with the creative process. What type of studio space do you use? Seeing the size of your space or your art pieces, do you have a very large, expansive space and you just kind of go, wow, all over everything, or do you control? So I'm just curious about
in
that.
front of you are two colleagues, Professor Savanka, the director of the O'Kane Gallery, and my boss, and his boss, Azar, who's our chair. Okay, so what do I have? Well, I'm kind of like the darling of the campus. Well, let me tell you why. I've been there 47 years. Nobody has. So there he goes. Let's let him. So they gave me a space 30-some years ago. And so that's where I work. Now, when the pandemic occurred, I had to use my son's former bedroom, which you can't have back. I did a work that was 96 inches high, sheetrock size, 3 panels in a 15 by 11 or 12 bedroom. And I discovered, okay, if I get some half-inch gator board, which is very light but strong, I could staple my paper on there, and I could paint large. And if it was too wide for the room, I just do a panel at a time. And more than likely, I could put 2 panels down just to really see. So it was kind of risky because sometimes I could never put all the panels together, and I'm going back like 10 feet, and wow. But I was very successful. That was the most prolific time in my life during the pandemic. My space at U of H downtown is a modest space. I'm getting ready to build a very large studio, so I'm getting ready to retire soon. And if I don't build a studio, they're gonna keep me. They're gonna find me downstairs on 2. Let's bury him. So I gotta build this space. We hired an architect, and hopefully by late summer of next year, we'll have it. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the Project Row House and
Oh yes.
the inception? Or
Yes.
who collaborated?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'll say the names again. The late Bert Long, the late James Bettison, George Smith, Jesse Lott, Bert Samples, myself. But the name you recognize is Rick Lowe. Now, why you recognize Rick Lowe? Well, before I say that, we would gather together. Houston has a great arts community. So when I moved there, everybody was starting to talk, and there were different groups doing some great things. And so we decided, well, we need a group. So we started meeting and eating. Meeting and eating. Then we had another component, meeting, eating, and drinking. And Rick said one day, we got to quit just meeting and eating and drinking. He found these 7 houses in 3rd Ward on Holman Street in Live Oak. And all of us were pretty known in the community. Rick was able to get someone to buy them. Not our money, somebody else's money. And then the whole community transform that those dilapidated houses into something you could function in. I recall going under the house. I don't know why I had all white on. I do not remember. I don't know why I had all white on. But I went under this house, and I came back out, and I had these black speckles on me. So what the hell is that? They were fleas. I said, oh my God, I'm doing all this stuff, you know? And then I freaked out because I said, it could have been a needle under there. You know, the drug needle kind of deal. And so it was a love affair with trying to transform a community. So in doing that, we had this element. We had an element where single women with children, we don't want them to stay on welfare. So they get a 1 or 2 year contract, and they have social workers and others to train them so they can get off of welfare, okay? One of our clients has a PhD. A PhD, Dr. Newsom. Not her, but she is a doctor, but she can't prescribe nothing for you. But so that was one element. Then we had the element where we got computers and we engaged things for kids, motivation. You know, we had dominoes. It was like, man, we ran the drug dealers out because there was too much coming in, you know, and rich folks coming in. So they know the cops was gonna come now. So they got the hell out of there. But
They sent children on international trips.
oh, my daughter went to Brazil. They went all over the world. Project Row House. We have affordable homes because of Project Row House. We had Anita Smith and I can't remember, but it wasn't Gerald. It was Anita Smith and another guy from the Heinz Corporation. They raised $9 million to refurbish an old historic entertainment building called the El Dorado. When segregation was going on, that's where we could go and listen to Ray Charles and everybody. They got all this money. They added on to it. It is a marvelous place. They're going to start having entertainers back in there. They had a restaurant. Project Row House. They have several homes in the 3rd Ward that are affordable homes for people. That's what Project Row House is. Next question.
I'd be curious, how do you start when you face either a sheet of sheetrock, piece of paper, a canvas? What do you begin? How do you begin? Or first of all, how do you make a decision whether it's going to be sheetrock, canvas, or paper?
Okay,
and
so-
how do you begin when you approach the actual piece of background?
Okay, so the sheetrock is just the structure that I put my paper on. So I don't paint on the sheetrock. I put the paper on the sheetrock, and then I can paint on it. But my inspiration, I'm gonna give you one classic example. You can look at pieces called Siuru, remembering. Make sure I do the title right. Winter in Chicago, Day and Night. Well, how did I come up with that painting? I was in Chicago about 5 or 6 years ago. No, it didn't be longer than that because it's a 2011 painting. My pastor, sister died. And he's from the south side of Chicago, so we come up for the funeral. And the founding pastor, Pastor Lawson, was in the W. Well, I came up to support. I couldn't afford the W. So I was in another hotel. But I went to visit Pastor Lawson and some others, and he's on the lakeside. You can view the lake. It's dead winter, and I'm looking out there at circles of ice. I was amazed because it was frozen, but there were these formations of circles of ice. And that was the inspiration to do that work. Now, I didn't do any drawings for it. I just needed to see circles of ice and came back and did that painting. Not in a day, because that painting has a lot of oil on it. And since I'm working on paper, I got to coat that paper with heavy gel or clear gesso so that the oil in what I'm using won't be absorbed into the paper and destroy it. But that's the way I work now. I get some kind of inspiration, and then I just look at the canvas and I start right there and I say, okay. And then I'm looking at it and I start putting something else. And so as I put things in there, the thing is balance now. Now I got to deal with this composition. How is this composition going to evolve? And so all trained artists understand visual weights, and visual weights are elements, visual elements, that if there are 6 over here and you only got 2 over here, these 2 must be doing something, color or maybe in size, they're larger than the 6 little ones over here. But you've got to balance those visual weights. So that's the way I work today. But in the beginning, I'd see something, I would draw it all the way out. I would do a color study. So that piece that's called Island of Love, that blue woman, like that, okay. I did a complete drawing and a color study. But that's when I was young. Now that I'm mature, I don't have to do that. I got enough in my arsenal, in my toolkit. And I'm very comfortable with it. But then I found a snag or two. I mean, that's why I can sit down and look at it, leave it alone, because I work on more than one piece at a time, okay? So I can go back and deal with the problem-solving activity. But it's always a problem-solving event. That's a good question.
One of the themes I've heard during your presentation is honoring the feminine energy and the form. One of the, I'm just wondering, in terms of this age in which male empowerment of the Black community, of young Black boys, seem to be left out of the current conversation, and they need to be a part of the empowerment. Is any of your work addressing that?
No, but I tell you what does address it, me. I'm part of different organizations. I got 2 nephews that I've been working, but my wife and I have been working with in Southside Chicago. So that's what I'm saying. I have to separate certain things. I don't have to have everything in my painting. But if I'm doing what I believe, that's more important. So my wife and I, we have this thing we're talking about, and we're going to do it. We're going to amass enough money to give scholarships so that people don't go into poverty. See, most of this whole attitude of, well, there are poor people and let's take care of the poor. I want to create a situation where they don't get poor. And college, trade school can do that. You see, so I got a son, a strong son. He lives in Hong Kong. He speaks Mandarin. My daughter speaks fluent Italian. My chair will tell you that because she speaks fluent Italian. But so we made sure our kids were exposed to many things. But we couldn't limit ourselves to just our kids. We had to deal with other kids. So the experience with Project Row House dealt with kids. So no, I don't put men. Somebody else does that. I can't do it all in my work. And the women in my family, I got my great-grandmother who got me in the Smithsonian, Janie, okay? I got my wife in there. I got her aunt in there. I got my daughter. I got my son, I got my son in one. Prince Iman, Euphemia and Prince Iman. So I got Reverend. But now, I'm gonna focus on one thing, you know, and somebody else gonna do the other stuff. But it's important that I, as an individual, as my wife and I for 50 years, who watched my daddy and my Uncle Frank do so many things. I said my daddy was the first firefighter. My uncle was one of the first black U.S. Marshals. And he was something. I mean, during segregation, you know, marshals go out as a pair. They wouldn't go out with him. They put him in a closet. Okay? Okay, you got me in this closet. I got all these books. I'm gonna learn all these manuals. He became famous, known for knowing all the rules and regulations. He became, over certain divisions, right? All of it in Alabama and California. He made lemons into lemonade. You see, so Marianne and Mark, right here, they own a painting with U.S. Marshal, and they didn't know what that was. My uncle, he knows it now. He knew it a little while ago about my uncle. One of the Tuskegee, okay. Tuskegee Airmen in there. The guy that's in there, I know his name, Moses. What's Moses? Aaron Moses. Why do I know his name? Because his son is a deacon with me, and his daddy was a Tuskegee Airman. And they didn't lose any bombers that they escorted into Germany, the Red Tails. So I got a few men in there.
Sort of piggyback on that, do you want to talk about another important woman in your life, Miss Josephine Baker?
Oh, that's my girlfriend. And I love her to death. But the reason why I love her to death, or I can't love her to death, because she's dead. Because that woman would kill me. So she appears in my work. You see, I got I need my brother to help me with this. I got an uncle and an auntie on my dad's side. I forgot their names, and they're in my work. I got a lot of the Mundus on my mother's side, my uncles and aunts in my work. So I use a lot of family members. And then because my wife is a librarian, and Mark, my colleague, one of the curators, said, you can get images out of the Library of Congress because what? What is it? Public domain, yeah. Yeah, Carol, you're a librarian, you're supposed to immediately say what that was.
I'm joined at the hip with you, but I don't read your mind.
I wonder about that. Yeah, you know, talking about honoring your family. That's how I honor my family, with family members being in my work. And my cousin didn't know I had a dad, or similar of my dad. See, her dad, Uncle Frank, a Marshal, U.S. Marshal, was in California and met the other U.S. Marshal, Marshall Dillard. What's his name? James Arnett. And they exchanged autographs and badges. Yeah. You see, so, but to put, my dad or my uncle, my uncle apprehending people and escorting them to prison or whatever, and my dad on a truck, that's not the way I wanted to do it. I had to have my own creative way and my own vision, my own evolution of sight. So I use things, and then I abstract them and dissect them and configure them and think out the box. There's some boxes. There's some boxes in my work. Look at them. And you can follow the box from 1987 to last year. That's another one of my subject matters.
Go back to Josephine.
I ain't gonna talk about her because you're starting to get mad. But Josephine, I did this painting called Josephine Show Can Dance. It's in the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. It's a 9-piece, 9 papers put together to make a composition. And I remember the banana costume. Yeah, Josephine was a tough girl, you know. That woman was tough. I mean, she expatriated, went to France because of racism in America, and she helped all these adopted here. She and her husband adopted all these kids. They did all kinds of things to defeat the Germans, you know, in Paris. They helped all kinds of Parisians, you know. So, yeah, Josephine, she's my shero, but also my girlfriend.
Well, this is the Wisconsin question. As we've been driving around, you stop and pause, and you say, I'm taking a picture. I'm going to use that later. And you've done that a few times as we've been driving around.
Yeah,
In
so
the last year, have you started working on any of those yet?
not yet, but I saw these water lilies. Thought about, you know, Monet, but I saw Musset. I saw another way of looking at those water lilies, but that formation was really something. So I make, you know, I've been looking at things here, and they're stimuli for other, you know, our other forms for my work. Anywhere I go, I'm gonna find something that I can use. And watch your children, kids' drawings. I'm already getting ready to buy an alligator out there, as long as it don't cost too much money. But I love children's art, and I change their stuff. I buy it and I change it. My daughter, when you look at that work called Inclusion Arizona, there's a drawing that she did when she was like 5 or 6 years old, probably younger than that. Then I put a little of my drawing in there, so now it's my drawing, and it's in one of my works. And on the first, that big blue piece, when you walk into the gallery, on the left side, you're gonna see an orange goldfish. My niece Sophia, Sophia's like 30-something years old. So, like 30 years ago, she did that as a child. So I said, Sophia, they lived in Brooklyn. Can I buy that? I said, how much would that cost me? She said, $2. So I gave her 20, but I already knew what I was going to do with it. So if it ever sells, she gets a percentage. I ain't got to get Arizona a percentage because she got a painting up there already. Floyd, his middle name is Iman, so we call Floyd now. But he owns several pieces, but they're small because he lives in Hong Kong, so he can't handle them big until he come back. Then you get something big, son.
You've taken us on quite a journey. The airmen, the Josephine Baker, your pastor, your extended family, ladders, et cetera, et cetera. Can you boil this down? And what is the one most significant point you want this audience to remember forever?
Forever. There's a lot of stuff in my work, right? So just remember me, and I believe in hope. I believe in joy. So my intention always is to use color to bring joy. Sometimes hidden in those little things are little social comments. You got to find them. But the first thing you're going to get is joy. And that's what I try to spread. My son and somebody else here told me here on, oh no, my colleague Mark, you are an optimist. I have to be. Alice Neal, some of you know who Alice Neal is, Lady Alice Neal. She had her first major exhibition at 72 years old at the Whitney. I am having my first major exhibition at MoCA at 72 also. So that's hope. What you remember about my work. I never quit. My saying is this: you can delay my success, but you cannot determine it, because I got hope. You see, I got somebody up there that always watches. I just got to be patient and believe. And I got some scriptures that help me do that. And I don't care whether you are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, we all got the same God. And we all got, if you got good morals and you got a giving heart, whatever way you give, that's what's important. So this last part of what I just said is what I want you to remember. And enjoy myself.